Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to paint this cute house using ink and watercolor. Supplies for today, I've got a pencil and eraser. Then for my outlining, I've got a Pigma Micron pen size 05. My brush is a size 4 round brush. I've got a optional Uniball Signo white gel pen for accents. I've got tissue paper, a spray bottle, my palette of paints and water. I'm going to start with my pencil sketch already on the page, and I'm going to use my Pigma Micron liner pen to do an outline over the whole sketch. This is a permanent liner pen. It is waterproof and it has archival ink in it. So I'm going to do the outline, basically redoing over my pencil lines. If you don't want to do a pen outline, you can go straight to the watercolor stage of this, but I think for whimsical pictures like this, I do quite enjoy a black outline. So I work quite lightly with my pen. I don't press too hard. I like to get irregular lines. I think that it gives the picture a little bit more sort of spontaneity and character. So I just hold the pen lightly in my hand and just go over the lines. This is cold pressed paper, so it also has texture to it, so it will naturally cause the lines to be slightly irregular. When I get to the roof tiles, I don't do a solid line. I also am breaking the lines up just so that they're not so firm and rigid. This sketchbook that I'm using today is a Baohong sketchbook. Baohong makes sketchbooks in two different types. There is the hot press and the cold press. This one has got a green cover, and that means it is a cold press sketchbook. Cold press paper is always my paper of choice, and I really enjoy this sketchbook because it's got excellent quality paper in, and it's a nice place to store all my smaller pictures. If you're choosing to do your line work before you're painting, then as I mentioned, this is a Pigma Micron pen. It has got a permanent ink in it. Whatever pen you choose and whatever brand you choose, just check that the ink inside either says waterproof. It mustn't say water resistant. It must say either waterproof or archival ink. If it contains that, then you know that the color is not going to run when you put your watercolor on top. Provided the ink is allowed to dry completely, there'll be no running of the ink at all. Although the original has got these lines for the stones as quite straight, I'm just making little bubbles out of each of them, just because I think that'll give more of a look of stones. And with the lines on the door slats here, I'm also just doing it really lightly as a suggestion. I gave my ink a few minutes to dry just to make sure there's going to be no smudging at all. And now with my kneaded eraser, I'm just going to run over it and erase any pencil marks that are still showing. I will spray my paints with water to activate them. This is my palette of 18 Daniel Smith colors. I'll put a link to the video in the description box below of me putting together this palette. I find that I get a really nice range of colors from what I've got here. The one change that I did make since that video, and I said I was going to do that, was I took out the alizarin crimson and I put into here carbazole violet. You can paint this house any color you like, but I think I'm going to start with a sort of a slatish blue-grey roof. And to do that, I think I'm going to do some Cobalt Blue with burnt sienna. With that in a very watery consistency, I'll put that down on the roof first, and then maybe I'm going to put some other colors in as well. This brush that I'm using is a Escoda Reserva round size 4 brush. Any brush that is sort of there and thereabouts in that size would be suitable. I keep adding a bit of water here and there so that I can keep my layer a bit wet, so that after my initial colour is down I can add some additional colours to the roof to give it a bit of interest. So you can see that this colour that I've put down is pretty flat and monotone at the moment, and I'm going to mix up some colours here. I'm going to put some more Cobalt Blue and dot that around in places. And then I'm going to send it the burnt sienna way. And provided there is still moisture in the layer here, you can see that it all blends nicely. I popped out to do a few chores quickly, so this roof has had an opportunity to dry. So I'm going to do the main wall now. And I think I am going to start with raw sienna, and to that I'm going to add a little bit of Viridian. I actually want to turn it or drop in some greener accents, so I'm going to start off with more raw sienna, and I'm going to put that down in a very watery consistency so that I can drop in darker colours over the top. And like with the roof, I'll keep an eye on it and just keep going back to the areas that I've already worked in and just drop in a little bit of water or very dilute mixture if it looks like it's drying. Now that that base layer is down, I will mix up a slightly more concentrated mix of the raw sienna and Viridian. And as I said, I want to push a little bit more towards the Viridian side. And I'm going to drop that in around. My layer is quite wet, so it seems to be blending all over, which is fine. I will come back with a more concentrated mix and try and get a more mottled effect. So let's make that a bit more concentrated. As it dries on the house, it will sort of blend out less, provided I don't keep making it wetter and wetter. That's more the look that I was wanting to get. I suppose I should have been doing a similar thing on the chimney, so let me just prepare more of the raw sienna mix here and put that down. And when I drop in more of the slightly more concentrated mix here, you will see that I'm dropping it into the center of where I already laid the green patches, leaving the lighter raw sienna patches still on their own, so that I don't end up blending everything all to be the same color. And then I've got neutral tint here. I'm just looking at the weather vane at the top. I'm just going to make that a darker color. And maybe this rooster needs a crown. Now I'm thinking what color I could do the door. I think it needs to be a nice blue color. So I'm going to get the Cobalt Blue here. I don't want it too bright, but I do want it a nice blue color. So I'm going to mix it into the gray that's already there. Yeah, I like that. All right, I'm going to put that down for the door. I must have had some burnt sienna maybe on the palette there that's dropped in, which is absolutely fine. It's adding some nice texture to the door. I think it might have been on the palette there somewhere. Yeah, here's a piece of it on here. So I was going to do a mottled effect on the door anyway, and it did it for me, so I'm just picking up some of the burnt sienna and then dropping it in here. Then another place that I can work on without anything touching anything is the center of the windows. So I'm going to make a very weak cobalt blue mix and do the center of all of the windows on the house. Now I'm going to work on the flowers. I think we need some bright yellow daisies. So I'm going to mix up some Hansa yellow light with some new Gamboge. That's great. I'm going to do that for the outside of all of the flowers. Or should we do two different colors? Maybe we should do a yellow and a pink. So I'm going to do one yellow and one pink on each side. And now for the pink, I think I'm going to use straight Quinacridone Rose because I've got that on my palette. I don't know if we want to make that a peachy color at all. Let's see. That's this plain Quinacridone Rose. Let's add some new Gamboge to it. It's a very bright orange color. I'm just going to send it a bit pinker. I think I like the plain Quinacridone Rose. And then I'm going to let all of this dry because chances are I'm going to put my hand down on something and smear pink paint or yellow paint all over my page. So I'm going to let this all dry and then come back and do some more. Alright, that's dry enough now. I'm going to do the stalks, and for that I'm going to do some yellow ochre with a bit of Viridian. Now I'm going to do the stones around the door. I'm going to do yellow ochre with a little bit of cobalt blue. And then I think we need something darker for the window frames. So I'm going to mix some burnt sienna with a bit of indigo. I'm looking for a nice darker contrast color. I think that'll work. So I'm going to do around these two frames now. I will use the same color down here. think we could do with this darker color in the center of the flowers. Then I'm just going to push it a little bit bluer to be more sort of the color of the roof, just to do the top of the chimney. Now I want to mix a green for the grass down here. I'm going to mix up some Quinacridone Gold with a little bit of Indigo. Perfect. I'm going to lay some water down first, or a very watery mixture of this. And I'm also almost going to dry brush, which means have very little paint on my brush, and with my brush almost sideways, running it over the texture of the paper. I think that gives a nice effect to the edges. And then I'm going to pick up a thicker consistency, drop it around the base, and then just get some texture to the lawn out here. I'm going to increase the concentration here. Again, I'll drop it in around the base. Alright, I'm going to let that dry. Now what I'm going to work on is some shadow on the roof. Each of these scalloped areas will cast a shadow on the area immediately underneath it. I want to mix up the shadow that I'm going to use. So I'm going to make quite a thick consistency because of it being a shadow color. I'm going to use burnt sienna. And I'll take some Cobalt Blue. So what I'm going to do it section by section. So I'm going to do this section first, this area just under the scalloped area. I'm going to put water down first so that I work wet on wet, but the water that I lay down I'm going to do in this area and not take it all the way down to this area because I don't want it to blend into the next, but I'm just putting water down beyond the area that I want to put the shadow on so that it blends naturally. And I'm putting some water down, but I'm not making it too wet. I don't want the water to be pooling on my paper at all. So I'm just lifting some water if I think it's too wet. Then I'm going to take this shadow color and drop it in just below the scallops. And that's sort of exactly the amount that I would like it to blend. I'm going to do the same down here. So I'll put that water down first, just blend it down to here. Lift it if it's looking a bit wet. Pick up this shadow color and then just drop it in. And then again over here. And if I want to go up to these layers up here, maybe just in these little triangles, I'm going to add some more shadow color just to increase the contrast that I've got there. The more that you can make very darks be right against the lighter parts on your sketch, the more it's going to pop and really give a bit more drama to it. But because that is a little bit dry, if I need to encourage the blending downwards with a dried off brush a bit, I'm going to do that. I'm happy with what's going on this layer down here. Maybe I'm going to add some more in the little triangle areas. Now I'm going to do a shadow under the top of the chimney there. There will be a shadow down here, but I want to use more of a greenish color than the gray. I think this is the color that I used for the grass, but I'm just going to darken that up. I'm just adding a little bit of burnt umber to it. I think that's going to be good. So I'm going to put water down first. And now I'll pick up this shadow color in quite a thick consistency. And then drop it in down below here. Because there'll be a bigger overhang here than there was on the layers above, I'm going to extend this shadow down a bit further. And now I want to intensify that shadow right here at the top. So I think I'm going to mix some more of the burnt sienna and cobalt blue shadow. And just right up at the very top here, I'm going to darken that shadow. Alright, I'm just going to let that dry. Now I'm going to get a bit of a contrast in the windows. They're looking just a bit flat and blue. So I'm going to mix up the cobalt blue again. And I'm just going to do sort of a little stripe in each window pane. And then I'm going to do a shadow just inside the stones of the door, because they would cast a shadow around the inside of the door frame. And I'll do a little bit under the handle. And then I think I'm just going to put a little bit more shadow around the top here. Now I'm going to put some more interest into the flowers. So I'm just going to get a more intense color and put it up the center of each petal. And I'll do the same in the leaves. And then I am running out of color on my palette, but I want to do a little bit of a shadow just under the bottom of the door. So I don't want to overdo it here, and nor am I trying to make this look super realistic, but I have done the shadows underneath the roof bits. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bit of shadow to either side of the roof and the house, because I think if I do that, it's going to give it more of a curved three-dimensional look. So before I do that, I'm just going to prepare the same shadow color that I've been using all along with my burnt sienna, and I'm going to add some cobalt blue. And then let me do the roof first. I'm actually just going to put water over the whole of the roof. It doesn't have to go all the way to the center at the bottom here, because the shadow is not going to go that far. But I'm just putting water beyond where I would like the shadow to go on each side. Then I'm going to pick up some of that shadow color and just put it down the left and the right hand sides. And then I'm going to encourage the color towards the center. And then I'm going to add a little bit more just down the far left and far right. And now I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to skip out this leaf here and the windows. Alright, so my water's down. Now I'm going to pick up that shadow. And then I'm just going to put down the left and the right again. This hasn't blended. This hasn't blended on this side as much as I would like. I'm just going to encourage it to the left a bit. But I also don't want things to get too dark, so I'm just going to lift a bit. Yeah, I think that looks better, and it will dry a bit lighter, so I'm not going to do more than that. Oh, let's just do a bit on the chimney. This is a lot narrower, so I must just be careful not to end up covering the whole chimney. I'm just going to lift some of the water so it doesn't spread too far. Right, let's let that dry. Now this part is completely optional, but I think I'm also just regretting having done the weather vane all in black because it looks a little bit too heavy. I'm going to take this Uniball Signo gel pen and I'm going to put a couple of little white accents on the picture just to make it a bit more fun. So maybe on the weather vane I'll just do some dots where the wing might be. Then on the window, I'll do some white. And you could also do this with white gouache or a pastel pencil or anything that you have that makes white accents. I'm also think I'm going to do some white dots on the center of the flowers. Yeah, and then I think I'm going to call that a day. I'm happy with that. So there's the final sketch. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye for now.